Maddie Lawrenson, bringing us a presentation on the DMC 14.5 sign code amendments.
Okay. All right. If anyone is watching this presentation or watching this meeting in the future, online, you can contact us if you'd like to know more about the code enforcement presentation because it was on mute. All right, and you can reference the minutes once they're approved and online as well. Okay. All right, so moving forward with sign regulations. This is the first time that you have seen this code amendment. And tonight will just be a presentation, no action taken tonight. But eventually it'll be coming back to you as a public hearing. We'll probably have another round of kind of presentation and review before it ends up being a hearing. But it'll come back to this planning commission in the future. Okay, and just to start off, I wanted to give a brief kind of overview of the purpose of the sign code. And that's chapter 1450. That's to ensure consistent, predictable regulation of signs throughout the city, ensure the signs meet the intent of the comprehensive plan, design guidelines, support community gathering places and commercial services, and to prevent visual and physical clutter. And the purpose of the updates mostly have to do with legal compliance with court decisions. And you have a little bit more detail in the packet on the actual court cases that are being used to guide these updates. Most of it has to do with temporary signs. And then there's kind of a more general purpose of the update is just to clarify administration and to promote consistency. All right, and then just to give you an idea, you also have the whole sign code in your packet, but just to give you an idea of the contents of the sign code, we regulate prohibited signs, things like billboards, electronic message signs, roof-mounted signs. We also regulate exempt, I guess we don't regulate exempt signs, we list the signs that are exempt. So for example, signs required by law. And then we regulate, so we regulate permanent signs and we regulate temporary signs. And so with those permanent signs, we regulate the allowed sign type and the locations of those signs. We also regulate the sign area. That's generally based on the, at least for wall signs, that's based on the area of the building facade. So it's a percentage. And then we regulate the design of the signs, and that's dependent on the sign type. And then we also regulate temporary signs, and those are the subject of most of the updates. And then we also have a definition section in the code, in that chapter specifically for definitions that relate specifically to the sign regulations. Okay. And then just to give you a brief understanding of what changes are being made. Most of that has to do with temporary signs. So that's section DMC 1450, 150. And the general idea is to make sure that we are regulating based on, not based on content. So to make sure that the sign categories are content neutral. And we are removing content-based regulation. So for example, in the past, we regulated based on whether something was a political sign. And based on the new court cases that have come out, that's not something that we should be doing. And we also kind of streamline the ability to put up temporary signs. So most of those currently, well, I'll say some of them currently require permits. So for example, right now, if you're a business and you want to put up an A-board sign, you do have to get a permit with us for that. And moving forward, most of the temporary signs, you won't need a permit. You will just need to make sure that you're following the guidance. And so we still will have guidance on the number of signs and the location of the temporary signs. And so we'll make sure that we are kind of getting that out to the community to make sure that especially businesses understand what they need to get a permit for, what they don't, and what regulations they need to comply with. And then yeah, just the temporary sign section has some new graphics and some organization to make it a little bit easier to understand. And then we also have some updates to other sections in that chapter, just for clarity, for consistency, and to make things flow more easily, and to make the changes that we're making to temporary signs consistent throughout the rest of the code. Okay, and then probably the biggest decision point that we know people may have strong opinions on is community banner sign regulations. So currently our regulations around banners are they're a little bit based on content, because we are saying that if you're a nonprofit, you can put up the signs, and so we just have to make it more clear and more enforceable, and kind of figure out where the boundaries are, because right now it is we're regulating and administering consistently, but just have to figure out how to make sure we're compliant with those court cases. So basically what it comes down to is there's 3 options for regulating banner signs. Firstly, we could allow all banner signs, and with banner signs, I'm talking about the ones that go over Main Street, as well as the smaller ones on the corners. There's the corner of Woodinville, Duvall, and Main, and then there are 2 recently installed corner banner posts on the other end of the city. So could allow all banners, so that would mean basically any entity, business, really anyone who wanted to apply to have a banner could put out that banner. Alternatively, we could potentially allow no banners, which would be obviously a big change. Or the third option would be to allow government speech, which basically means city-sponsored banners. So you would have to apply to have the city logo actually placed on your sign. And so the city would have to determine a policy for deciding whether to sponsor that banner or not. So based on the guidance we've received and kind of internal discussion with staff, the third option looks to be the preferable option right now, but would be interested in hearing your input, of course. Because eventually you'll need to make a recommendation on this update to the city council, and then the city council will determine whether to adopt. We'll be bringing this to city council as well to get their input. I guess I will say, allowing all banners would be easier to administer, but it opens it up to just kind of be a free-for-all, and it opens us up to a lot that we don't want to see on the banners. Even just thinking about maybe a larger business that's not local to Duvall, they could apply to put a banner up as well. We wouldn't really be able to regulate that at all if we went with option 1. Let's see what else I have for you. Okay, and then just as far as the timeline goes, initial drafting is done. That was completed by our consultant, BHC. And then we have internally gone through and provided comments from each department. That's complete, or mostly complete. Of course, we are having you and city council review. And then we eventually are going to need to submit to the Department of Commerce. That's coming up pretty soon. Just waiting on a final version of the draft from our consultant. And then we'll do a SEPA determination, determination of non-significance, and then there will be public hearings before Planning Commission and City Council. Yeah, I'll actually have to check because I know next we'll be talking about DMC 1408 permit processing, and that's the chapter that right now tells us we need to have a public hearing before Planning Commission and City Council. We need to have two separate public hearings. I'll need to double check because I don't remember off the top of my head if we've changed that in 1408, since it's a little bit unusual to have a public hearing before Planning Commission and one before City Council. So I can let you know if that has changed. All right. Any questions?
Team.
It was a nice long document, but it was like the visuals were helpful.
Yes, it is rather
That was my
long.
other question.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll bring it back again for review. So this is kind of just an introduction at this point.
What do you think the largest comment or largest, elephant in the room is for each one of those options? Like, obviously, I know you said, Walmart could come in and put up a banner across Duvall. But I see the farmers market stuff, that's cool to have there too.
Yeah, so the farmers market, I mean, I'm sure that would be something that the city would be able to sponsor. And so third option, they could apply and could have the city logo be put on that banner.
So when you say sponsor, it's just basically it's gotta go through and then get voted on, and then no matter what, it's just gotta have the logo.
Yeah, my understanding is we would need to have some sort of policy on what we could sponsor and what we couldn't. Yeah, so I would need to double check on kind of what the plan is for that. But yeah, there would be certain criteria that they would have to meet for us to be able to put our city logo on there.
And as far as like speech issues, how is making it like a city approved thing? Like, doesn't that sort of just move the issue to like a different locus in a way?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Government speech is regulated a little bit differently than other content, fine content. And
So
so
as far as what the city would be sort of using as a kind of gatekeeping device for determining who gets to take advantage of that sponsorship, is that also maybe a
yeah, so there has been some conversation with our city attorney on this already. So there may be more that I just am not aware of, and I'd have to check with our city administrator and attorney and get back to you on that. But from what I've heard from them so far, and based on kind of the comments to our consultant, we would be able to work with our attorney to make sure that we are regulating that in a way that meets kind of the legal requirements and where we're consistent in the enforcement of that regulation. So yeah, when we bring it to you next time, I can definitely kind of follow up and make sure I'm clear on what more specifically that would look like.
I had a similar question on the same for planning. If this is a city sponsor, like as a public, what should I take it? Like, is it the city telling me something, or is someone else telling me something, or with a permit of city? Like, how should I take that message?
So you're saying if the city says we are going to sponsor this?
Yeah. So like, who's telling this? Is it the city telling me, hey, there's a farmers market, or is farmers market telling me that, hey, we are here this is approved by city.
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding is if the city is saying that we can sponsor the banner, then we're putting our name, you know, on that and saying this is something that we can support.
Yeah, the approval.
Yeah.
Is there a DMC for that?
What is it?
Is there a DMC code for the government speech? Like,
There's a law.
oh,
Yes, and
Yeah.
right now we're working on making sure that the DMC lines up with that. The legal standards. So we do, and right now,
We don't have a
That's-
banner
that's-
policy.
yeah, that's part of the reason that we're working on these updates is right now our code is not as consistent and kind of clearly following the legal standards. Yeah, it's not as clear as it should be on that point. So we're trying to think through what are the options that we can look at that would be meeting those requirements.
And I'm also curious, like, is this be regulated as like a social media post by city? Like, should be considered, I'm not sure it's equal, but are these regulations similar to what like city posts on a Facebook page or something? On social media?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think that'd probably be a question for our attorney.
It
Yeah,
would likely be spelled out in the banner policy. I think once we get it
Yeah.
more defined and
yeah, we're kind of at the beginning of, I mean, we're not at the beginning of the drafting of this, but as far as these options are concerned, there's still a lot of discussion on what option we move forward with, which is partially why we're bringing it to you, because we want to hear what your thoughts are, and what your questions are, so that we can bring more information to you the next time. And I will say my understanding is that, we'll make sure that we'll make sure that the public has a chance to provide input. Obviously with public hearings they will, but we'll want to make sure that we're providing, you know, maybe more noticing and a lot of involvement to make sure that businesses feel comfortable with regulations that are proposed. So I think Cynthia was telling me that she'll be setting something up for the trying to think what it's called, but before the official city council meeting, the joint. Do you remember what that's called? Or is that before the actual city council meeting starts at 7? There's the
Cal,
yes,
we did the whole.
yes, committee of the whole. My understanding is that there likely will be at some points
Workshop time.
a workshop within the committee of the whole. But stay tuned for that. I think Cynthia's still kind of figuring out what that will look like, so.
cool. Any other questions? Okay. Going to move on to new business.
Oh, actually, we have one more.
Oh, 14
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That's okay. All right. Yeah, so this, like I said in the email that went out with the packet, this is a chance for a second review of 1408 and the amendments, the proposed amendments. Yeah, Abby did a great job presenting on 1408 at the last meeting. So I just wanted to provide a quick refresher. And as a reminder, this is a complete repeal and replace, so it's not just strike and delete. It's a whole new 1408. It is required based on Senate Bill 5290, which was passed in 2023 and codified in RCW 3670B. And so what our updates do is they consolidate review types and they update processing timelines. So I kind of laid them out here just as a quick recap. Project permits that don't require public noticing, the review time of 65 days. For project permits that require public noticing, it's 100 days, and then project permits that require public noticing and public hearing, 170 days. And this review clock starts when an application is deemed complete. And then it does stop once the city has provided comments to the applicant. And then restarts once the applicant has submitted the second or third, whatever round it is. So there is some stopping and starting to calculate those timelines. And then it's been organized for clarity to make it user friendly. I think it's much more user friendly than the previous code. And then it does remove elements that aren't associated with land use processing. So there's a specific definition of project permit that's given to us by the RCW. And basically this 1408 is helping us with regulations around how we process land use applications generally. So things that are more in the planning realm. They don't have to do with building permit or public right-of-way permits, public works permits in general. Yeah, so we're kind of making sure that those things are clear and laid out clearly for you. And then I just put in a couple tables just kind of as a refresher. So we have a table which lays out the types of review. So type 1 through 5. Type 1s are the simplest and the quickest, all the way up to 5, which encompasses annexation, comprehensive plan amendments, larger pieces like that. Yeah, so you can kind of peruse this if you want a refresher. Can ask me for an understanding of the items on this list, but that's the general idea. And then we also have a table for the review process. So once you've determined what type it is, then you take a look at this table and you say, okay, what steps in this process do I need to fulfill based on the type of application? Does it need a determination of completeness? Yeah, they all need a determination of completeness, so we can figure out when that clock starts. And then all application types except for type 1 needs a notice of application. So saying, yes, the application has been received, and the city has this application where the review has started. And you can kind of just work your way down the list and take a look at what all the steps are. And it's pretty spelled out pretty clearly for you there. All right, and then this table has to do with distribution method for noticing. So once you've looked at the previous table and figured out whether you need to do noticing or not, and then you can take a look at this one and say, okay, if I need to do notice of application, what does that look like? And what steps do I need to, check off to make sure that I've fulfilled the requirements? And yeah, that's all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know 1408 is pretty huge, and if you're not in it, it can be a little difficult to understand how all the pieces work together. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think the main point is this has to do with project permits or land use applications, and it is a required update, so there's not a whole lot of leeway. And our consultant VHC has also worked on this, and they've done a really great job of putting together something that we feel comfortable with. So
Agreed.
and I'll say we will have a public hearing on this one at the next meeting, so make sure that you can attend if at all possible. And you'll see a notice of public hearing. You will get sent out on Friday. You don't ever have to respond to those, but you and city council are included on those public hearing notices. So.
Cool. Yeah. Do we have any new business to attend to? Do we have any unfinished business to attend to? Do not. Does anybody else have anything to comment on? Okay. Well, then I will adjourn this meeting at 6:36.
Looks so speedy.
All right.
It's not efficient.
We just have to bring.
Yeah. Hold it till next time.
Streamlining, oh, yeah.
Looks like it's stopped.